stars to shine, reflecting on my past life, and it doesn't.
Welcome to the Stab Comedy Theater. It's time for the book report. Please welcome already on stage your hosts, Dana and Jesse.
To the gallows.
How are you? I am well. You know what's going to be the hardest part of today's episode of the book report? Is not turning. Oh, should I stop?
There we are.
Oh. You know what's going to. Hi! You know what's going to be the hardest part about today's book report?
What?
Is stopping myself from turning to Marco to say some random music fact that I think he might find amusing, but I'm going to focus
Okay.
my best to
Or we can talk about books that
Or
are about music.
talk about. Oh, yes, we should do that. Yes. Okay. So now we know how we're gonna get Marco on in a couple of months or next month. Who knows? How have you been?
Good.
Usually, like we haven't seen each other in a month, but we just saw each other on Tuesday. We saw
Yeah.
the Boogeyman. What'd you think? What's your review of the Boogeyman now that you've had time to like process it?
Well, I heard it was a book, so that's how this started. I'm wondering. I did look it up, but I should have. But I'm wondering if it's an older book because, from like a story perspective, it was your pretty basic. Oh no, something supernatural's followed my family and haunting our house. And like, I thought it was scary, and I thought the actors did a good job, and I thought it was made well enough. I'm not a movie person, so someone could come around and tell me I'm wrong, but then I'd slap them.
You
But like,
fight me.
but I feel like it didn't do anything like I didn't feel the way about it the first time I saw The Conjuring.
I
It's
was
like,
just about to say it wasn't The Conjuring.
right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you're like, I've seen this movie before, but they did it in a new way that I love. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, I've seen this before. Only the monster was different.
What about the preview for the new Conjuring movie?
Ugh,
Are you all in, or do you not remember the previews?
I've not seen the first Nun, so I don't know. I saw one of the Annabelle, like, origin stories, and it was so bad. Like,
Really?
it was so bad.
Uh huh.
So yeah.
All right, so so that's a no on the Conjuring.
No.
That sounded like a hard no on the Conjuring movie. What about I know we're talking about books, but one more movie thing. I picked up some kids. I drive Lyft. Okay, I drive Lyft, and I picked up these kids at the theater, and they had just seen Flash opening night, and they almost convinced me to go see the Flash movie because of all the Batman stuff.
Okay. See, I'm really sad that like Ezra Miller has all that like drama around him because he's hot.
Yeah, but
Ezra Miller was in oh fuck, I can't remember the name. Was in a movie based on a book that I love that now I can't remember the name of. I'm blanking on it. That was a really good book.
Okay. Are you reading any books right now?
I have been reading The Body Keeps the Score, which
Okay.
is
This sounds like a self-help book.
it's about how the body, like how trauma affects the body. So
Ooh.
yeah, so it talks about like how people's brains react differently on trauma and like the parts of the brains that react. It talks about how like physically your body will react to trauma, like how like your guts and your heart and your other spot will respond, and it kind of looks at like the history of different studies and figuring out how different things work. It's a little intense. I can definitely read it like a chapter a day and then be like, okay, cool.
Is it one of those books that like makes you want to be like, hey mom, when I was 8, like does it prompt a lot of those?
There are definitely times where I was like, is this me? Should I like test myself for like this or that? Or am I like, okay, this doesn't sound relatable. I'm like, oh fuck, this is really relatable. And then I'm like, oh, maybe that's why this person did that thing to me that one time.
Right,
because
right.
their traumas got them all shut down. Or this person's over here reacting because their traumas got them all flighty.
Yeah.
I definitely think like, oh, is the reason why I'm extra jumpy when I'm stressed? I'm like, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Anytime in my life where like I'm extra stressed or extra anxious, I get way more jumpy, and I'm already naturally like easily scared.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Remember when we talked the other day and I was like, I'm going to pick up a book and start reading it before the show so I have a book to talk about before the show? Remember that?
I do.
I didn't do it.
That's okay.
I didn't do it. You know what I did do? I found an OG monocopy of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper. Yeah. Oh. Jeez. Yeah. And so that's what I did. That's what I did. And then that made me like take an inventory of all my Beatles records and reassess what it is I really want. Like, do I really want OG mono copies of my favorite Beatles records, which is only like 4, you know? And yeah, I do.
I have
I do.
copies of all my favorite Beatles records.
Do you really?
Yes,
What's
it's
it, like,
0.
Beatles?
Like, I don't know if it's because, like, I'm too young, or if it's because, like, I've always really been into, like, what's new and now kind of thing, but I'm kind of like, I get how the Beatles became so popular, but I think that they've got talent, but I think they also had the luxury of being the first ones to do something that hadn't been done.
I absolutely think, like, they were one of the first boy bands.
Yeah.
And they did so much speed and played their instruments so much while they were on speed that they figured out new ways to play their instruments and new ways to make sound. And it's not the success story you hope your children follow, but I mean, it happened, and there was some great stuff. And I think that, like, when people, there's two things. There's like the people that are like, oh, the Beatles suck, I don't like them. And then there's people that are like, well, I don't really know a lot about the Beatles, but I guarantee you, I promise you that one of the bands that you absolutely love first grabbed a microphone or first grabbed a guitar because they heard a Beatles song or an Elvis song.
I'm not a fan of that either. My favorite thing to say, just to see how people respond, is that Fall Out Boy are the Beatles of my generation. Just to see. I'm not going to back it up with any arguments whatsoever, but that's sort of my take.
Okay, all right. So with that, that's why we don't talk about music on the show. That's why we should stick to books.
Right.
We should stick to books. Hey, do you want to bring up our first guest? I was so like you were like, let me see who I can find, and I was like, yeah, let's see who you can find. No, I'm just kidding. And yeah, and how many exclamations did I use? And I was like,
so many.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't sure if you knew our first guest, and then you were like, oh my God, yes. And
yeah, that's exactly how it was, but in text and on Messenger.
Probably a deeper voice.
Yeah, bring them up.
Okay, so our first guest today is Adrian Starkey, who is a sketch comedy performer. Come up and sit in the chair.
Yay, I'm sorry. I would have applauded if I wasn't drinking water.
Adrian and I performed together in Squad Patrol, which is a sketch comedy show.
Yes.
Squad Patrol was one of the first things that I loved at the Sacramento Comedy Spot. And I can still remember one of the sketches that I thought was absolutely brilliant, where I think, and I may be doing it wrong, well, there was 2 of them. There was the Russian car wash attendant that Laura Carruthers was in, or something like that. And then there was the one where they were questioning the 2 stormtroopers who had been Jedi mind tricked by, and they were showing them the body cam footage, and he's like, but these were the 2 droids. It's like, no, they weren't the 2.
Yeah. So that might have actually been Secret Handshake Society?
That's what it...
It's the same group.
Yeah,
there have been
but
some
it was
name
originally
changes.
Secret Handshake Society.
Yeah, for a while we were Secret Handshake Society. Now we're Squad. We've been Squad Patrol for I don't even know how long now. Too long. I've been doing this too long.
Kind of the secret to getting in is write a Star Wars sketch.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
And Derek Don wrote the star, the one you mentioned, the second one, the droids.
Okay, the droid, but these were the droids.
Yeah.
I was like, I've tried to explain that sketch to so many people so many times, and they just look at me like, sounds good. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, okay, so that was part of our Star Wars show, and because we used to perform in West Sac every year doing a sci-fi show, and like the first couple times it was great, but like one time we actually did the Star Wars Star Trek show at Comedy Spot, and we went out and we announced, we're doing like Star Wars and Star Trek, and like in the front couple rows was like a bachelorette party, I think, but everyone else in the audience was like, oh, okay. Like, there was no, like, yes! So, like, we just performed a show of, like, Star Wars jokes to people who gave no fucks and knew nothing about it. And so they're like, oh, yes, I understand intellectually that this is a joke. That was one of, like, the most disappointing shows. Yeah.
So, in West Sac, they take that Sci-Fi Day really seriously because I've seen them dress the baseball players up in Star Wars gear. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like that they let them do that.
Yeah. I knew Adrian was a book nerd because when I was brand new to Sacramento, I would run into them at Dimple
Yes.
bookstore. Yeah. I would run into you guys, and I think like a couple times I saw you, but like didn't see Marco, and like I was still like didn't know anybody, and yeah. But do you miss Dimple bookstore? Dimple, what was it? Dimple.
It was Dimple. Well, there was Dimple Books.
There was
and then
Records and More, and then the bookstore was right next door, right?
Yeah, they were two separate buildings, and so me and Marco would park in the middle and then split up, and he'd go into the record store, and I would go into the bookstore. Because going into a record store is I love him, but oh my god.
Is that what it's like?
Yeah.
I made the mistake of going into a record store with the DJ once, like in the 90s, and I just went back to the car and waited.
Oh yeah, no, he can definitely spend more time in a record store than I can spend in a bookstore.
When you go into a bookstore, what's the first section you go to? Because here's the thing. Here's where record stores might beat bookstores. In a record store, like there's all these categories that you know are kind of be there, right? But then there's also the just arrived bins, and that's always got stuff that just got there. No one's really looked through it yet. What's the first place you go to at a
It depends on the store.
Okay. Well, at Dimple, can
So-
you remember that far back?
Yeah, so at Dimple, I would go straight back and go to the right, and that's where like the nature section was, and I would just look for wolf books.
Wolf?
Yes.
Nice.
There's you guys are gonna see. This is all thematically tied. And when I lived in Oregon and I went to Powell's Books, which takes up a whole bookstore, a whole city block. The first time I went there, like my objective was to get to the wolf section. I don't know if I made it. I think I eventually did. But it's multiple stories.
Oh, wow.
But eventually, once I figured out like, oh, this is how I go, and then I'd always like wind my way through and like go like this around other people to get around them to like get to the wolf section.
Okay.
And then I'd look at all the books, and then I would wander and peruse other areas. And,
I am noticing you have the wolf shirt.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh no, this is all.
Are you wolfed out?
I'm ready for this book report, you guys.
Well, hold on. Let me look at our other guests and see. They're not in costume.
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
What is Dana? I feel like I'm taking over this interview.
Oh no, you're good. I think we should probably already talk to us about the book.
Yes.
I'm assuming it's the one on your
I
shirt,
had more
but
wolf
I don't
questions.
want to make
It is the book on my shirt, you guys. So this is a White Fang
Okay.
by Jack London. I don't actually I have a copy of White Fang buried in this unabridged, like all the books Jack London wrote.
Oh, that's what it is. That's what's
and
going
short
on.
stories. He wrote a lot of short stories.
Okay.
I was telling Dana before the show, this does not have everything Jack London wrote because I don't know if that's possible to fit it in one book because he was a journalist, and so you'd have to like, I don't know if that's. It would be like Lord of the Rings. You'd need multiple books, otherwise they would just fall apart. But anyway, so what I'm reviewing today is White Fang, which is one of his most famous books. Not the most famous one. I'd say the most famous one is Call of the Wild, which he wrote before White Fang, and that was the one. Oh, and so this is fucked up. So Call of the Wild, like when you write a book and you can either get like a percentage of the sales or you can take like a flat amount. If I remember correctly, Call of the Wild, which became like a huge bestseller, tons of money, he accepted $200 flat for it.
Oh no.
And he like gave like the royalties or whatever, gave it up, and it was like that was all he got. And so Jack London, if you don't know, was awesome. Here's a picture of him in the back.
But being a journalist, he was probably really used to like just writing something and selling it for like what he could get.
Yeah, he was like a go kind of guy, just like liked adventure, wasn't afraid of stuff. When he was younger, like he was working like by the age of 8 or 10 in factories in Oakland and stuff, and he was like such a rabid socialist. At one point, he wrote a letter to the Socialist Party saying that he was leaving them because they weren't like progressive enough, basically.
Wow.
He was very cool. And also, if you read The Jungle, it's another book. There is a reference near the end. The guy from The Jungle who's gone through all his adventures, he walks into a socialist meeting, and Upton Sinclair mentions 3 people, but he doesn't mention them by name. He just kind of describes them. But I swear to God, Jack London was like one of them. I think I'm saying this correctly, or I'm doing it wrong because maybe The Jungle was written before Jack London was famous. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway,
So.
but about the book, White Fang.
Fang.
White Fang is actually kind of the reverse of Call of the Wild. So Call of the Wild is about a dog that goes into the wild and becomes wild. This is the total opposite. It's about a wolf mostly wolf, a little bit of dog, who starts out as a wild dog and then it has horrible experiences and like learns like the tragedy and violence and brutality of man, but like then meets a man and learns love and loyalty and all of the finer things in life. And if I start crying, it's just because these were The Call of the Wild and White Fang were the first novels I read. I was 7 years old, and they were above my reading level, but there was a wolf on the cover, and so I powered through, and I understood most of it.
So it's told from the wolf's perspective, or from the man's? Who's narrating this story?
It's third person.
Oh, okay.
So, but so when he talks about the dog's experience, it's not like Cujo, or is Cujo in first person? Stephen King book?
I don't know if I've ever read a first person not human book.
Oh, there's tons of them.
Look.
If you get it,
Gosh, Dana.
You know, funnily enough,
I almost went like this. Like, don't.
Funnily enough, I recently read the first ever second person book that was about werewolves.
that would be hard.
I never read a book in second person, which was really weird, but also enjoyable.
If you read a lot of middle grade animal books, that's where you'll find your first person. I am the wolf. I am the owl. I am fly. I'm all that stuff. But no, this is third person. And so when he describes the dog experience, it's like the dog jumped over the fence. The dog bit the man. The dog. There's an epic scene. So anyway, at one point, White Fang. Oh, our protagonist is White Fang. He is a puppy who's born of the she-wolf. Also, wolves in Jack London's universe are diabolical. It's not like, oh, nature's great. It's like, no, wolves will fuck you up in like almost like a bigger than life type of way. And I think that might be partially based because he lived in the Yukon briefly, and like actually he went there to like go gold mining, but spent at least I think the first 6 weeks at a bar because Jack London was kind of an alcoholic. He died when he was either 40 or 41, related to alcoholism. So. Yeah, play hard, party hard type of thing.
Those writers live hard lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he spent at least like the first 6 weeks just in a bar, like just drinking and talking to people, and just came back with all these like stories, and so I think that was the attitude of like wolves up there is like, oh, these guys will fuck you up. But anyway, so there's this she-wolf, and she's like stalking these people, and she gives birth to White Fang, who eventually is captured by like some Native American group up there, and then they sell him. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, because I haven't read this book in a while, I read this book multiple times when I was a kid. Just read it, put it down, and then like pick it up again and keep reading it. Like this was.
I love those types of books.
This was like my Bible when I was in. And you know, if you're 7 years old, once you get through it the first time, it's much easier the second time because you've already looked up certain words in the dictionary, and you're like, I know what that is.
Oh no. Oh gee.
I'm so sorry.
Pockets are the worst.
And the battery came out.
That's okay.
It's probably not okay.
I think it'll be okay.
It'll be okay.
There we go.
Yeah, look, it popped right back in. Look at that.
Look at that.
Is it working?
Is it working? Do I need to do something to it? Oh, fine. Okay.
Yeah, the voice behind the wall said we're fine.
I don't know how long. I could like go into all the details. He fights a pit bull. No, the Indians they talk about alcoholism in the book and how like the firewater gets the Indians, and so the White Fang is this prized dog of an Indian chief at this point because he's a wolf. But then the guy's an alcoholic, and he has to like sell the dog to this horrible white man who's like actually a horrible white man named Beauty Smith, and he like beats him and trains him to be a fighting dog. And White Fang is like fucking up all these dogs in the fighting ring, and they're like betting on him. And it's like so epic. But then somebody brings in, it's not clear if it's like a pit bull or a bulldog. But they talk about how like once the dog bites, like Jack London goes into like extreme detail about like the different fighting styles of dogs, which kind of tells you like you watch this clearly in your life.
Oh yeah.
But he like describes like when this dog like just clomps onto White Fang's neck and doesn't let go, and he's defeated by this dog, and that's when like our human hero comes in and like rescues him and takes him. And like White Fang is like he's like on the end of a chain or rope, and he's like snarling and biting, and like he's like, no, I don't accept your love. The world is horrible, blah blah blah. And like through just like this book will make you cry.
Like, you're almost making me cry right now.
No,
like,
because it is through like love and patience and compassion that this man like wins the heart of White Fang. And then it's also epic because this never makes it into any of the movie versions that I know of. So this man is from California because Jack London is from California, so write what you know. And he takes White Fang back to California somewhere, and his dad or something is like a judge, and there was this criminal who like got put away by the judge, and he always held a grudge, and he got out, and he comes back to the judge's house to like murder the family, and White Fang is like, no, motherfucker, and kills the guy. I might be misremembering some of this, but I sort of like, anyway. And then the ending of the story, spoiler alert, is Jack, there's like a collie that he has babies with, and they have little babies, and it like ends with him sleeping on the porch in the California sun. It's like,
Oh, I thought it was gonna be a sad ending.
oh no.
Wow.
Because I can't do stories where the dog dies. Like I
need a
refuse to
cigarette.
watch any movie about a dog because you know they're gonna kill the dog to make you sad.
Yeah. Well, and so that's why, like, so that's like the difference between like literature and like, just stories that are good. Like, I think Call of the Wild might be considered literature, is because like that's kind of a less happy story. Like a lot of dogs die in Call of the Wild. Like it's just brutal. It's just horrible. Like
Okay.
in horrible ways too. And so like White Fang really is the reverse of that. And it just, it's about the power of love.
What year does this take? Like what time period?
It would have to be like late 1800s, early 1900s.
Oh, because there's still Indian chiefs, and then there's still.
Yeah,
and
I mean, and
those-
this would be based on like, so when was the Yukon Gold Rush? 'Cause that's,
Oh, that's a good question.
so White Fang was published in 1906. Call of the Wild was before that. So yeah, that would be my guess. Is
Okay, yeah.
So I just realized, okay, Jack London Square is named after.
Yeah.
Jack
Yes.
Wow, I did not know. I'm not from Northern California. In my defense.
that's you know what? If you're not from here, you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
There'd be
and
no
now
reason
now
to.
you just opened up this whole door that I don't think I'm gonna read any Jack London. But I think I'm at least gonna Wikipedia the fuck out of Jack London.
If you wanted to read a short story, the short story that's considered the literature one that is also like brutal, and I won't tell you anything about, is just To Build a Fire.
Okay.
So that would probably give you like a taste of. It's just a short story.
Okay, about Jack London, was he a journalist for a San Francisco paper, or like the Chronicle, or was like?
I think it must have been the.
Well, it had to be because if they named Jack London Square after him.
Well, I think because he wrote like many books that became popular. He was very popular during his time. Like while he didn't like get famous posthumously. He was famous while he was.
Oh, wow.
He made it. He was like a poor guy who just.
But he
made
died
it.
so young still.
Yeah.
You
Well.
know, it was hard living in the wilderness. Like he's not gonna learn about wolves from like the bricks of his townhouse.
Yeah. Well, like So working in like a factory from a very young age. He was married twice.
Well, that'll do it.
He was still married to his second wife when
Okay.
he died. And so this is fun fact. She when she was an explorer, like they went and like I don't think they built their own boat, but they like had a boat built and they like sailed the South Seas, and he was like a photojournalist also, so he took pictures during like military stuff. And she
Definitely
was like,
Wikipedia on this.
but yeah, his wife, she had a weird name that I can't pronounce. Charmaine? It's spelled weird. But she was like with him, and she wound up with like what's the guy, Harry Houdini?
Really?
Yeah, so she had a certain taste for
The
high status men, I think, who
Wow.
were doing different stuff.
I mean, if he was in California in that time, I mean, there weren't that many women.
Yeah, not.
There's probably more than in like the gold rush days, but you know,
Yeah.
you come over to California as a lady, you're like looking like I can pick of the litter.
Yeah, so
you mentioned that there's been several movies made about this, or
Yes.
a couple of movies.
there's been at least maybe just TV versions also, but there was like a Disney movie when we were kids.
Is that one probably the most famous, the Disney one?
Of the White Fang ones, yeah, probably. They're definitely, I think, for Call of the Wild, there's like an old black and white one that I think would be.
So
considered
for
the
White Fang, if you had the power, if you were like this super Hollywood producer, would you make this a blockbuster 2.5-hour movie?
Oh, they just
or-
actually made Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford.
Or,
They just remade that.
or would you make it a 6-part Netflix miniseries?
For White Fang. Okay, so an interesting critique about Jack London's novels is that people who are really into novels are like, oh, his novels are too episodic. Like, they don't have like themes woven through them. They're just like, this happens. and now this happens, and it's very captivating. It's like, well, he was a newspaper man, and wrote short stories. Like, you kind of got to get to the point.
Yeah.
So because of that, actually, I would do a Netflix series.
Yeah,
So then I
and
could
then-
just do each section and really like have a complete package,
Yeah.
but then you can keep watching and go to the next one if you want. So actually, yeah, I would. And then also, if you did a Netflix series, then you could spend more time on it than if you just had a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's
you
not
could-
like I know this book is big. White Fang itself is not like the longest novel, but it's still like there's still more in it in the book than you can comfortably put in a 2-hour movie, I think.
Yeah. So it's definitely got to be a Netflix series.
I would think, oh, a series would be rad.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
How do you think you would do the dog though, like, or the White Fang? Like, would it be CGI, or do you think it?
In the past, they used real dogs, and I think that's the way
Really?
to do it. Yeah.
Just get well-trained ones that could
Yeah.
do what you need, and then they probably CGI some stuff in there to like.
Maybe for
Things
the
like
dog
that.
fighting. I don't know how you would
Yeah.
do dog fighting now.
Yeah, because that would be the episode I want to see. That seems like the gut-wrenching episode. But I would really, I think that would need to be a 2-part episode of
Yeah.
one of like him getting traded, and then he goes into the dog fighting world.
Yeah.
And then the end of the second episode, or the end of the first episode, is maybe the guy's like, well, I want to buy that dog, and then he goes, and then he. I think that'd be a great 2-parter.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dana?
Yeah, but I don't want to see dogs be mean to each other.
But it's part of the story.
I know.
If you watch, as I recall, the Disney movie when I was a kid, I think the dog fighting part, like when they finally get to the pit bull / bulldog / mastiff, whatever mix it is, 'cause that's the other thing they talk about in Call of the Wild, which I think is based on truth, is that if people were rushing to the Yukon for the gold, they were just like any dogs. So you sometimes had dogs up there that were not, and they wanted them to pull sleds. Some of these dogs were not suitable for
I'd
that.
be like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like other little corgis, like running around.
Like Irish setters and stuff, and it's like this. You guys, this is not. You didn't like, and people didn't know though. People like heard about it, and they're like, okay, we'll try to prepare. And
Get some greyhounds.
yeah, and there's this thing called like the Chinook Pass, I think, and I think it's still there. It's like a geographic. It's like a step ladder thing up into the mountains, up into this Yukon area. But the Canadian government at the time, like, they wouldn't let you pass unless you had enough food for like 3 months or a year or something. You had
Oh,
to,
wow.
so you had to take all this stuff up these steps. And when Jack London went, he went with like his brother-in-law, who was like kind of he went with his brother-in-law and like his old uncle or something, and like was not. They weren't able to do the work, so he basically went up and down this crazy pass multiple times, bringing their supplies up.
Wow.
So yeah, Jack London was kind of a badass.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Before we get to the improv scene, do you want to share like what you have the shirt? You have something else going? What is everything going on here?
So the shirt is from Jack London State Historic Park, where I went on my 7th anniversary with Marco. It was
Aw.
amazing, and he bought me this shirt. This is supposedly like one of the original covers of the book. This is a wolf necklace that my future mother-in-law got me, Marco's mom. This is a moon necklace because I thought like wolves howl at the moon. Let's be thematic. And this is like a little tiny wolf with probably fake stones in it that my mother got me. And then this is like a toy I had when I was probably too old to be having wolf toys, but I still have it now.
I got one for my birthday like 2 years ago. So
Okay, you know what? That makes me feel better.
Awesome. All right, Dana, do you think you got everything you need? Is this
I
gonna be a
hope
tough
so.
one?
I feel like I can pull something out of my butt.
I tried to mention like Harry Houdini. I was like, give them shit to work with.
Yeah, that was an awesome book report.
Yeah.
Do I get an A? Do I get
Well,
graded?
we got to see how your
You get an
improv
A
scene.
in the book
It's
report
like
part.
60% of the grade.
Oh, wait, so 60% of my grade is someone else's work?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
You
this is
have-
America.
You have to come do an improv.
Oh,
scene.
I'm doing it with you?
Yes.
I know that. All right,
Oh.
let's do it.
Read the
Okay.
fine print.
My foot's messed up.
You're walking down this alleyway, man. I'm gonna fuck you up. I'm a wolf in a city.
Oh no! You take my bracelet. Take my.
Yeah, I need your cell phone and your wallet, please.
I don't have my cell phone.
Come on, dude. Like, you took all of our forests and made them into these cities, and we still gotta survive.
Also, do you really need my cell phone when you can, like, if you howl, you can hear something 6 miles away, so your buddies should be able to. I'm just saying, no, I want to help you out. I will give you anything you want. But I think you should ask for stuff that would help you.
Listen, this isn't about helping me out. I'm a predator. And
You're an
this is-
apex predator.
Exactly. This is about making you afraid and me fucking you up so you go tell all your little friends, oh no, the wolf attacked me in the alley and I'm scared now. And maybe you write about me and I get famous.
I mean, we could skip some of that. I could just write about you and make you famous. I mean, we're in the big city, you know. This
Okay,
is
cool. Could you like tell me my big old scary teeth?
Sure,
and
you know
claws?
what? Here, let me get my space object. I do a sketch comedy. I don't fucking do this shit anymore. Here's my space object, 1940s reporter notebook.
Nice. Because I mean, it's not like I've been following you around the city or anything, being like, I want to be famous too. My name's Sparky.
Sparky?
Yeah.
Okay, so kid, this is showbiz. So we got to go with something flashier than Sparky. Any dog on the street is named Sparky. You're a wolf. You're a big bad wolf. We need something with like oomph, with power, with pizzazz.
Okay, sometimes my like bros in the forest call me anal glands because I really express myself. How does that?
You know what? That's if there is a market for that. We can do that college humor frat boy market. You know what? And that market never goes away because those guys just keep dropping out and they're just replaced by more of them.
I mean, I do got a lot of tail going on.
Yes, you know what?
That's a good market.
And expressing anal glands is a thing that needs to happen for older German shepherds, and you are a wolf, so maybe that happens with wolves too.
Oh yeah, so also,
So medical dramas.
I've been kind of single lately
Yeah.
because of the fleas. Do you think you could like hook me up with some bitches?
Yeah.
You know, cause like I got a thing for Scotties.
Scotties.
Yeah.
You know what? I know some Scotties.
Oh, you do?
Do you want black, white, or Harlequin?
How about all three?
Well, let's make it happen.
Okay,
Let's make
team.
Do we do more? Do we keep going?
No, we're good.
That's
Okay.
it, that's it.
You can go sit down.
Okay.
now.
Free.
Thank you.
I loved that scene, and I loved how like the beginning of it is like, okay, like first rule of improv, accept what they throw you, and she was like, no, you're not. But it worked. It worked. Oh,
great.
thank you so much. We're gonna give you an A.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was that your first A?
That was my first day in this class. Yes.
Oh, okay, in this class. Oh, you
You
got
just
it.
get the one grade. This is a college board.
Okay.
No, actually, I guess they give you multiple. In law school, you get one grade on one test at the end of the year
That's
for
it?
most classes. Yeah, and
Oh,
that's it.
I need
Wow.
something more rewarding than that.
Yeah.
I need to be rewarded like constantly.
Oh no, you don't get rewarded. You get called on in class, made to feel like an idiot.
Oh,
Trying to toughen you up.
Yeah.
okay. All right. All right.
Okay.
We ready for our next guest?
Yes.
Okay. I had to put a call out on Facebook for a guest, and I was so happy when this person responded. I was like, yes, why didn't I think of them? But yes, please welcome to the stage comedian Maria Deplotis.
Yay.
Did I say your last name right?
Deplutis.
Darn it.
We're so close.
Oh, I think I got it right. You okay?
Oh yeah, I just got my hair. I'm still getting used to the long hair.
Oh, okay. All right. How the heck are you?
I'm good. I don't have pockets, so I'm just gonna be holding this.
Okay.
I thought about sticking it in my bra, but I don't know it well enough for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe next time it'll make it there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe.
If it
Or the
plays
third
its
time for
cards
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Great, great. How was your drive? I would say drive up, but it's kind of drive side.
Yeah, how's the drive east? It's like as side as it
Yeah.
gets.
How's the drive side?
It was fine. There wasn't really traffic. There's like a little, like some places that always have some congestion, but
Uh-huh.
it was pretty good. I took a break in Fairfield. It's like a midpoint.
Okay.
Oh, where are you coming from?
I live in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jack London's from near there.
I know. Oh my goodness. I didn't know that
heard of him?
either. Like I knew Jack London Square. I had heard about that book. I didn't know Jack London was, I didn't know anything about him. I just knew the name.
Yeah.
Because of Jack London Square.
That was awesome.
So yeah, this was very informative.
Yeah. I've been there a couple of times. It's a really cool place.
Yeah.
It's so weird when you read books, you learn things. I don't.
I know, right?
It's blowing me
If
away.
only
This is
people
too much.
would know that, right? We could solve so many
Yeah.
problems.
We don't just have to like. Well, I'll just look for a YouTube video about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you love books?
I love books. Now I listen to them more because I didn't really grow up
Fair,
with books.
fair.
Like my parents aren't readers. We did have some books in the home, like children's stories, but they were like written in Greek, and they're like Aesop's fables and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I never really, I read like more than people who don't like books. But when I talk to people who like really, really love books, like it doesn't compare, like the amount I read with them. But like as a kid, I was really into like the Goosebumps books.
Yes.
Like love those. And then as I got older, like even though I do comedy, I tend to like more like intense, serious books. I like books that help me understand myself and the world better. So The Body Keeps the Score, I've read a couple times. Like I love that book so much. I wish there was a way to like make it in like meme version so that it would be more accessible to everybody, because it really deals with like concepts about the self and how you relate to the world around you that I think like everyone should know.
Yeah.
Right on. I'm gonna have to check this book out or
what's
use one of my
interesting-
Audible credits.
That's where I actually listened to that one. It's actually a textbook. Like it was never written meant for like, you know, non-academics
it was
to
for
consume.
like a cognitive psychology class or something. Or?
Yeah, it's all about like complex trauma, like complex PTSD, what that means, how it happens, how it affects the individual, how it affects the body. So it was really written like for academics and students, but then it became mainstream, like years after it was written. And it's like anyone who's had these experiences or like knows someone who's been through this kind of trauma can really benefit. I think everyone can benefit from reading a book like this, but it's one of those rare times when like a textbook went mainstream.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I really recommend that one. I did not bring that one because again, it was an audiobook.
You said you had a tough time narrowing your books down.
Yeah, because I only had like a day. And
Yeah, less than a day, I think.
I like books that are heavy, and I was like, ooh, comedy show. I don't know about this. So I brought it, I narrowed it down to 2 by the same author, and they're similar, so I hope it's okay that I can do those. Yeah. But I also, like, they're not my favorite books. Like, I wouldn't say they're good. They're interesting, and they're light, because everything else I brought is pretty heavy. But, so we could do that, or, like, I don't know, do you guys want to see what I brought, or should I just do
tell us
those?
your
We kind
heart.
of do. Yeah, we kind of do. We
like,
kind
show
of
us
want to
the
see.
goodie.
We want to see the also rans.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I mean,
we can't spend a lot of time on the also rans.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to see the also rans.
Okay.
I love making jokes about serious topics, so you know.
Okay, we'll see if you still think that after I show you the first book, the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay.
Ooh, my man.
Which, aren't you glad I did not come in costume when you asked me earlier? I was like, no costume. I love this book. I read it when I was like 18, and then I read it again a few years ago. I think everyone's heard of this book, at least in America. People know what it's about, but Malcolm X, like, I really admire him. He's like a person I really look up to, not just because of like how much of a philosopher he was and how much he understood the human condition and himself and sort of like the cause and effect of things, but his evolution as a person.
Yeah, I read that book.
And that to me is so important, because I think a lot of people have this idea that like you are who you are and people don't change and whatever, and like there's no point, like, you know, no need to explain anything to anybody, no one can learn, no one wants to learn, blah blah blah. But if you read this book from like start to finish, or even watch the movie if you're not into reading books, like his story is proof that people can learn and change and grow, and like how the experiences you have influence the way you look at the world and interact with it and understand it. So that's why I love this one. I'm not going to get too much into the details because I think in general no one really likes hearing a white girl talk about racism, but or 2 white girls acted out in improv. So I was like, this isn't going to be the one, but I had to bring it because I really, really love it.
Really good point. Really good. I'm glad you made that choice.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not my place, but at the same time, I love the book.
Okay.
So there's that one.
So next week I should bring in a book all about communism so we can debate communism.
Oh, I should have done that.
It's all funny you said that.
Yeah. Okay.
Fidel.
The next one is, like, if someone put me on the spot at gunpoint and was like, pick a favorite book, it would be this, but I really don't like picking favorites, but I do really love this book. The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
One of the darkest books I've ever read. I mean, it is dark. Are you guys familiar with it?
No.
It's a
She is.
post-apocalyptic book.
Oh.
They never say what happened. It's like the event. The world is gray. Most people died. Most people that are still alive are just, they're not zombies, but they behave like them. They're eating other people and worse things. And it's about a father and a son. And that's what this is about. It's the relationship between a father and the son, and sort of the perseverance of like hope and goodness in a world that it's just gone to shit, right? And I don't want to give any spoilers or get into too many of the details because it is really fucked up shit. Like, think The Walking Dead, but like, oh, am I not supposed to say bad words?
Oh no.
Okay.
But I just like, oh, that sounds bad.
Yeah, but it's so good. And there is a movie version of it with Viggo Mortensen, which I think they did a pretty good job considering a lot of this book is about the protagonist's thoughts and feelings. So there's not a lot of words, but they managed to make it a movie. But I highly recommend this book. It is a bummer, but like when I started reading it, I could not put it down. Like, so good.
Read it in 2 days.
I read it.
You'll be
I
bumped
read
out
it
for a
in-
short period of time.
I read this in one sitting.
Yeah.
Like, I
Wow.
loved it so much. And I've never done that before, like, when I'm not on an airplane or something. Like, that's how much I loved
I
it.
thought she was
Okay.
going to say speed.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right.
Well, back in 2017, I was like, I have too many unread books. I'm gonna read a book every week. So there were many weeks where I was like, fuck, it's the weekend. I haven't read a book this week. I need to hunker down.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is by my favorite author, Toni Morrison. It's called Sula. And it is a story about a woman. And it goes through her childhood and sort of what was happening in the world around her. And what I love about Toni Morrison is, like, she lived through so many things that a lot of people don't live through. Like, a lot of traumas. She was in like a sex worker for a little bit. And I think that like all these experiences like helped her gain this sort of perspective on the world that a lot of people didn't. Toni Morrison also grew up in diversity, which is something that is rare in this country. And I do think that when you grow up around people who are like different from you in a lot of different ways, you have an understanding of the world that's very different from if you grow up somewhere very homogenous,
Yep.
right? This book, if I were to summarize it, I would say that it is about complex trauma. It's about how that affects the person. It's about how it affects how a person interacts with other people and like what their internal process is. I don't want to get into it too much, but if you haven't read Toni Morrison, read literally everything she's ever written. This one's my favorite. It's also very dark. I'm not going to give spoilers away, but it does involve like bad things happening to children. But very good.
Okay.
Okay. This next one,
It's like Santa's bag of books.
I
I love
get so
it.
excited.
it just keeps going. I really could. It took me like all of last night and this morning to narrow it down to 7. Okay. So I love this book. It's called Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, who's a first-generation Greek American like I am.
I was wondering when your heritage was going to come into one of these books.
Oh yeah, it's the
But
next
you're so
one
proud.
too.
You're so proud.
It's who I am,
Yeah.
right? Like raised between 2 countries, and how are we doing on time? I can speed it up. Okay.
Oh no!
I mean, if you just want to keep talking about a bunch of different books, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is your time.
I'm sure Jesse will eventually tell us, but no, yeah, we're fine.
Middlesex was written, I think, in like 2002, and it's his second book. His first book was The Virgin Suicides, which is more
Oh.
well known and was like a movie that I think was like acclaimed in some way. But this one is like
Sofia
my
Coppola.
favorite one of his.
It's got
I
Kirsten
think it
Dunst.
is. Yeah,
Sofia
it is Coppola.
Yeah.
So this book spans 3 generations and 80 years. And it's not linear, but it sort of talks about like the grandparents who were born in modern day Turkey in like what was called Smyrna at the time and now is Izmir. And there was a big genocide there. Like people know about the Armenian genocide. There was also the Greek genocide. So it gets into the history. It was like at the same time, right? Of like what caused his ancestors to leave their like ancestral homeland and like come to America. And then, so like, it's actually, okay, so I guess the author is first gen, but I think like in the book, the main character would be second gen. So then, like, his parents are born here, and it's sort of about the Greek American experience, like in Michigan, like in Detroit. Well, part of it is in Detroit, but Middlesex is like the name of the town where they live in, but it also refers to the fact that the protagonist of this book is intersex, which there's not a lot of books that have that. It is a little bit problematic because Jeffrey Eugenides is not intersex, so there is a bit of like writing about an experience that you haven't experienced yourself. But part of that is because it deals with a lot of things that happen intergenerationally in Greek families, especially like in secluded villages, or you're dealing with trauma survivors and stuff. One of the main themes is incest, because there's like multiple generations of incest. Again, I like the dark shit, but like, but it's sort of the experience of this like coming of age story of the main character, Callie, like starts life out as a girl, because like they didn't know, like sometimes with like intersex people, like the male parts don't like fall out and reveal themselves until like later in life, like adolescence and stuff. So part of it is about gender transition. So this book explores like what is gender, what is sex, like what does that mean? What does it mean when you don't fit into like binary ideas of being? And then it also deals with like the racial dynamics of being like a Greek immigrant family, like in Detroit, where like you're not quite white, but you are white, and then there's like racism against black people, and like where do you fall in between, and how part of assimilation is like trying to assimilate into like racial ideas. Anyways, it deals with all of it, and sort of like the adventure of Callie like moving out west. Part of the book takes place in San Francisco. Strip clubs get a mention in there. Lots goes on here, very interesting, and it gets into the history of like what happened in what's now like Western Turkey. It's like the history of the Greek people that a lot of people don't know, but recommend. Then this one they've been trying to turn into a miniseries for over a decade, and there keeps being complications. I heard it's in the works again. I don't know, I'm not gonna hold my breath. Okay, the next one, and then, okay, so this one is called Midnight at the Barrel House. It's another Greek one. So this is a book about the life of Johnny Otis. Do you guys know who that was?
Wow.
No one knows who Johnny Otis was. So his son is a little bit more well known. Shuggie Otis, they were both musicians. So Johnny Otis was a first generation Greek American who was born in Vallejo, California, which is where I'm originally from. And then he was raised in Berkeley near Oakland in like an all-black town. So everyone he grew up with, other than his family and like the Greek community he kind of was a part of in Oakland, was black. So like all his friends were black, and like he kind of culturally was black. And he never lied. It wasn't like a doll is all situation, because again, this is like early 1900, like 1920, and then he became very popular in the music scene like in the 50s. But he basically felt like in America you have to choose to be black or white, like especially at that time. But all his friends and his community, and like he like left the Greek church because the priest kept hitting him, because we're very violent in my culture, and like he joined like one of the local, I don't know if it was Baptist or not, but like one of the local black churches. And so it's sort of his story about like what is culture, what is ethnicity, what is race, what does that mean in America, and how do you be your true self if there's like all this other stuff that's happening in the world around you that you can't control. He had a really, really big hit called Willie and the Hand Jive.
Oh, that was him?
That was him.
Wow.
You know Willie and the Hand
Yeah.
Jive? Yeah.
Sounds
That was Johnny Otis. His real name was Ioannis Veliotis.
Uh-huh.
And he was like it was like everyone knew he wasn't black, but everyone knew he was black, right? And what made him more complicated is like ethnic Greeks are from like all over the Mediterranean, spanning 3 continents. So his mother was from mainland Greece, but his father was a Greek from Egypt. So he was African, but then it's like Middle Eastern people are still considered white. So anyways, it sort of gets into that a little bit, but it's also very much just about his music career and sort of how he was involved with like early R&B, and how you know, a lot of people will sort of credit him as being like the founder of R&B. He never accepted that credit. He was like, I was just there and I was lucky to be there. But he was a big influence in it, and then the musicalness like spanned generations, you know, with like Shuggy Otis and stuff as well. So he's a very fascinating character, and he was very popular at the time. Like he would do like integrated shows that would be like on TV and stuff, and he was like one of the first people to do that. But he's kind of been forgotten by a lot of the Greek Americans because, of course, race plays an impact on everything. But fascinating story and a type of American story we don't hear about often. So there's that one. These are books I really love.
Okay, and this is your report now.
The next ones are stupid.
Oh,
Okay, because I wanted to make it light.
Okay.
Did you guys have any questions about any of those before I move on to,
No, we gotta
to
get
the
going,
stupid
yeah.
ones? Okay, they're both written by the same person.
okay.
His name is Thomas Thwaites. You've never heard of him. Don't read these books. This one I read. This one I'm halfway through. They are nonfiction. So this first one is called The Toaster Project. And basically this man, this guy was like, I wonder if I could make a toaster. And then he decided to try and figure out if it's feasible to make your own toaster. And he's going from the angle of like, are humans capable of surviving on their own without larger society? And so he gathered, he like figured out all the components. He made the chemicals himself. He tried to make the metals himself. He tried to make plastic. This is the toaster he ended up with. And like it cost like thousands of dollars to get it made. If an alien were to come to this planet and was like, what's privilege? You could be like, look up Thomas Thwaites. Because it's like, this guy was just a guy, right? He wasn't really like a researcher or anything. And he just had the time and the money and the luxury to just make a toaster from scratch. And if this doesn't sell you on the privilege thing, his next book was called Goat Man, How I Took a Holiday from Being Human.
Oh, jeez.
And that's him on the cover. He joined a herd of goats. He made like a prosthetic goat legs and arms and a helmet. And he did something weird with his stomach so he could eat grass. It's weird. But again, just some guy contacting experts in the field and being like, I want to be a goat. And they're like, come on in, I'll show you everything you need to know. You need to autopsy a goat? We've got a goat for you.
Was he loaded? Like, did he have like?
No.
No.
No, but he wasn't like super poor because like if he was, he would have to work all the time and wouldn't be able to build a toaster from scratch or become a goat for a little
This
bit.
sounds like Tony Stark's dumb brother. Who's,
Right.
who like
Definitely
instead
not
of
the
making the
oldest
Iron Man
child.
suit is like, I'm gonna make a goat suit. Hey, you got any parts for my goat suit?
And then he lived as a goat for a bit. This one's cool because there's pictures inside of his experience as a goat. So that's basically it. And thanks for letting me share my collection of books I love, which are more or less dark.
Dana, do you have goat questions or do you have toaster questions?
Yeah, goat or toaster, same premise.
I mean, that just looks uncomfortable being a goat. Like, I don't think I'd want to stand like that for like more than 10 minutes. Like,
He claims he
So he's
entered the mentality of a goat.
okay.
He
Oh,
became
he's
a
a
goat
method actor.
in his mind. He's, one might say, trans-species,
Okay.
except in an experimental way, because he's human again.
Uh-huh.
But he it was like an invasive process to his body.
He like disassociated from his humanity and became a goat.
Is he still alive?
He's alive.
What's he working on now?
I don't know.
I hope nothing.
I don't know what he's up to now.
He's gotta be up to something.
Yeah, I don't know what book 3 is going to be, but I just think this is pretty fascinating because I've never been in a position in my life. Like, I do stand up, I'll do shows sometimes, and people are like, oh, you should be working a real job and making really money and like use your time more wisely or whatever. But that's a minimal like commitment, right? When I do stand up and stuff. But this guy like was able to twice in his life within a short period of time completely drop everything, make a toaster from scratch, and become a goat.
Do you know
And-
how long it took him to make the toaster?
Oh, geez, I don't remember because I read this
Or
one.
was there
this
several
one
failed
years
attempts?
ago. I think, there were many failed attempts. There's pictures in this one too. He started fires of like molten stuff. Like, he might have given himself cancer. Like, I mean, he used a microwave to try to make some chemical thing, and it just exploded. Like, highly toxic stuff. But I think it was a matter of months. Like, there was a lot of trial and error, but I don't remember exactly.
What
but
if this was like the guy in the apartment above from you?
I feel like give it a few years and they'll be like, and he died at the age of 42.
Dude, yeah, like, I don't think these were healthy choices he made, but also not really anything. All that work and research and communicating with experts, like, he spoke with, like, a psychologist of some sort. Like, a goat psychologist is not a real thing. Basically, someone who was able to tell him, like, this is how goats think, this is how they interact with each other, this is how they process the world. It's like a really stupid, like, Jane Goodall, like, because she actually, like, contributed to the world with the work that she did, right? But this was just his own pure curiosity that I don't think has anything actually to contribute to humanity, and probably really took a toll on his body.
I'm sure the goat scientist was like, no one wants to know about goats. I'm so excited to share information.
I'm sure the ghost scientists were actually pretty excited
They still talk
to be
about
talking to anybody. With the toaster, he reached out to a lot of people who were like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And then he finally found, like, people who were willing to help, because he was like, how do I get this chemical? And they're like, well, that's like a controlled, or not chemical, like a metal. They're like, well, that's a controlled thing. You can't just buy it. Like, and so this guy's British, right? He's in England, which is like, of course he is, you know. And he traveled to different places, I think all within the UK, but still, it's like he went to Scotland. He had to go on boats. He had to travel around to get the materials. He had to go, like, mine for ore, and just, like, all these things that, you know, there are parts of the book where he's like, and I'm not really wealthy or anything. And it's like, well, you're wealthier than you realize if you're able to do stuff like this. But I still, like, I found it interesting, but it's like, these are like my bathroom books. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're in there, you forgot your phone, it's going to be a while.
There you go.
Reading The Goat Man.
All right. Dana, you ready?
I am.
Okay, let's go. You ready? You're going to act out a scene with us.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, thank you, Miss Johnson, for letting me come read to your kindergartners. I brought a whole slew of books that they might love. Like this one. Crazy guy tells things about that children should not want to do, but might want to do. So I'm very excited to read this to your children.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, the more we let them know, like, what their options are in life, because it's like, you know, whatever you want to be, you can be. You want to be a doctor, you could be a doctor. You want to be a fireman, you could be a fireman. You want to be a goat, you could be a goat.
Right? And this will be great because this teaches children, like, at least 50 things in their house that are super dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, and this one called Semi-Famous Man Does Drugs in Bathroom. I think this will be very useful for children. I think they'll enjoy some real American history about someone no one's heard of.
Yeah, I think as long as they're aware of the different ways of being, there's lots of people no one's ever heard of. Why focus on the ones that contributed to humanity is what I say.
Oh, this one about somebody vaguely like my mom has complex trauma and now I'm going to learn about it. That's a really good book. I mean, this won't scar children at all.
No, but especially because they won't understand most of the words in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll understand the part where mom spanks the little kid a lot, but you know, other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. But they won't think it applies to them.
Oh, and here's the one too. White Girls Talk About Racism. This is a great book.
Oh yeah,
All children
bestseller.
should read this one.
Yeah.
And see.
Oh, thank you so much, Maria, for bringing those books all the way from the Bay.
Thanks for letting me share them all.
Did they charge more during the toll for all the books?
No, but maybe on the way back.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being part of the show. Thanks for tuning in at home. And that was the book report. You also got an A.
Oh,
Yay, thank you. Oh, thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Jesse. Let's go home and read some books.
I definitely want to Wikipedia Jack London as soon as I get home. And that was awesome.
Oh, thank you for letting me share all this.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty, well that was the book report, everybody. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's send you guys off to somebody else. online audience. Who's still doing things? Let's see. How about Unexpected Productions? We never get to rate Unexpected Productions. Check us out. We stream live shows from the stage Thursdays through Sundays. And we're streaming 6 nights a week otherwise. Check out staffcomedytheater.com for the full calendar of events. Let's get you over to Unexpected Productions. See you back here tomorrow, guys.
Long brown hair, she's so sweet with her. Get back there. I could see you at home with me, but you are with another man. I know we ain't got much to say, but before I let you get away, ooh, are you gonna be my girl? 1, 2, 3, turn your hand, come with me, 'cause you look so fine, and I really wanna make you mine. You look so fine, and I really wanna make you mine. 4, 5, 6, come on and get your kicks, 'cause I don't need the money with a face like that, do you?